All right, good afternoon, everyone. So, in just a few minutes, we'll be starting our TGIF session number 13 for this afternoon. And uh, we will be joined by a friend of mine from UPT Liman. And please do get ready. We invite you to settle in, grab your coffee or tea, and make sure you have your maybe notebooks and pens ready if you'd like to jot down some insights from our speaker today. So, for those joining us, for just joining us for this session, today we're in a truly valuable learning experience. We're in for that, and our guest speaker, Jejo Bongat, is here to share expert strategies or stories and lessons that will help you with see new perspectives and elevate your skills. So, trust me, you wouldn't want to miss a single part of his story and his experience. So yeah, and maybe while we wait, why not use the chat box to introduce yourself or say hi, tell us your name, where you're joining from, and one thing you are excited to learn today. So this is a great chance to connect with others in the audience if you'd like. So we are actually live in our Facebook page right now, and we're also live in Reach 360's YouTube channel. So yeah, see you in a bit. All right. So, good afternoon again, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of our Techie Guys. It's Friday, our TGIF learning series here in Reach 360. So, this Friday, we're taking you inside the halls of one of the country's top science high schools to see how they embrace the future of learning. And so, we entitled this From Chalkboards to Cloudboards. So EduTech Transformation in Philippine Science High School with Mr. Jejo Bongat, who will uncover how Pisay, as we know the Philippine Science High School, transitioned from traditional classrooms to tech-powered learning spaces, the challenges and breakthroughs in adopting educational technology before, during, and after the pandemic, and some insights that can inspire other schools and educators to innovate for the 21st century. So for those who are new in our TGIF sessions, these sessions are actually bi-monthly. So every other week we have these TGIF sessions, either in the morning or afternoon, sometimes in the evening. So weekly, it's a dose of learning and inspiration where we share stories, insights, and experiences from incredible speakers who help us grow both professionally and personally. So yeah, so whether you're an educator, student, parent, or simply about the future of learning, this is the session that will give you a behind-the-scenes look at how technology is reshaping education. And yeah, so Mr. Bongat is really good friend of mine from UP Diliman, way back to Diliman. And he has been in Tisay for more more or less 7 years already teaching. So he will be introducing himself more as we go along. So yeah, I would like to introduce my dear friend Jejo. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, so I hope my audio is clear and I hope my signal is okay naman. So, magandang hapon po sa lahat. Good afternoon everyone. I am Jejo Bongat, but you can call me Jejo, and I've been a faculty member of the Philippine Science High School main campus for a little over 8 years. Can't believe it. Ang bilis ng oras. 8 years na. So,
8 years na pala. Sorry.
um,
The last time
oh
alam ko
nga, ang tagal na,
7 years.
Yeah, 8 years. Yeah, I started teaching in the Philippine Science High School main campus in July 2017 and I actually came transition from corporate management consulting and sales analytics prior to joining Philippine Science High School. So, I actually did projects in technology consulting, so mobile app development, learning and development, as well in for a telco client, sales analytics. But I really realized that my passion is in education. It has always been in that sector. So I decided to follow my calling, follow my passion, and well, doing well now, fortunately, and it's quite a ride. So I guess I one of the good things, or I don't know if it's good, but I was a teacher, high school teacher before, during, and after the pandemic, and having those as the quote unquote phases of my teaching experience, I feel like technology has been there as a support. And the bonus is during the pandemic, I actually took my master's in learning and teaching at De La Salle University and completed during the pandemic as well. So I finished it in 21 months, all in the middle of the pandemic. From all coursework was taken online, the comprehensive exams were also done online. So I have the perspective of being both a teacher and a student during the pandemic. So it's also something I want to share. So, if I may, I actually intentionally did not prepare slides because I want this to be more of a free flowing sharing of my experiences. So, for today, I will be talking about for today I will be talking about the experience. I think 2 to 3 years before the pandemic, what happened during the pandemic from both a curricular standpoint and technology adoption standpoint, and the post-pandemic realities that we had to face. And of course, the lessons learned as I went through those phases of my teaching career. So, Prof. Jerry, trap na po talaga ako. Masaya po yata mag-retire sa gobyerno, sabi ng parents ko. So, I would want to, as much as possible, stick to my job. And it's really giving me a sense of fulfillment teaching the bright young minds of the country. Having been a PSI alumnus myself, I can see the difference. Ang laki ng hugot ko from my buhay estudyante and now as a teacher. Parang lahat ng mga my wishes when I were a student about my teachers, I try to give that to my students now. So, before the pandemic, it was quite interesting kasi I was hired to teach an elective, the selected topics in engineering elective, or as we just call here in Pasay, like how we call the UP. Ah, nawawala ba? Hello? Am I still in ano? Okay. So,
Yes.
I was hired to teach an introduction to engineering elective for senior high school students, grades 11 and 12. And basically, the objective or the intention of that elective offering is to prepare students for engineering programs in the university. And while we were there in that planning, my main agenda was to propose this was to transform this elective into something instead of teaching the math, the physics, the drafting behind engineering. I didn't want this to be like a prep course for the technical stuff. I wanted this to be a prep course for the soft skills required to succeed in engineering, and for them to realize, for the students to realize, if engineering is a career or a field worth pursuing for their own self. So that was the so when I came in, pasaway agad ako sa curriculum. Revamp agad. So punayagan naman, and I think from two sections in my teaching, that became four sections. Eventually, naging eight sections worth of students yung nag-enlist. So, we had to expand. But the surprise was, during my first day of teaching, I was suddenly given two extra sections of grade 9 statistics. So I was caught aback, but as an industrial engineer, I knew I could teach it. But teaching statistics face to face, but to grade 9 students, wherein the syllabus would technically be for third year IE students, that was an extra challenge. When I was teaching statistics, I was more reliant on the blackboard or the chalkboard or the whiteboard with the aid of slides. Because when you teach a math-based or problem-solving class, I found it more effective for the theory, the concept, to be projected on the screen. And then on the sides of the screen, and their work. So that was my approach in teaching statistics. In engineering, it was a typical slide, discuss, didn't do much more in my classes before the pandemic. Wasn't much of a fan of online submissions. I hated reading from the screens. And the students, they weren't really much expecting me to adopt technology. They were also used to that relatively traditional setup wherein they submit papers hard copy, the statistics students submit their problem sets and their homeworks. I even have quiz notebooks for my statistics class, just so everything is in one place. But then the pandemic came. I could not handle the classes the way I used to. So before it was quite traditional before the pandemic on my end. But during the pandemic, overnight adoption did not happen at all. We just like many, if not all schools, we had to stall the start of the school year. And I was actually involved in developing a new curriculum for that elective for the entire PSHS system nationwide. So yung pagpapasaway ko nung first year of teaching ko, I used the pandemic. And well, so sila na nag-adjust sa akin as the curriculum writer. Because I was appointed, so I like, okay. So, the considerations when I was designing the curriculum was that everything had to be operated online with not exactly reduced, but more of streamlined desired learning competencies. So, platforms use, it was quite interesting because hindi kami magkasundo as an institution about the platforms. But on my end, I stuck with until I got frustrated with the lack of features. And out of pocket, I bought a Zoom subscription so that I can do breakout rooms, so that I can do more efficient screen sharing with annotations. I did it out of pocket. So imagine for one school year that cost me around 8,000 pesos. In terms of learning management systems, I decided to use Google Classroom because it was available, although we were actually required to use Moodle. So, Moodle was something that the school system, the National Office of PSHS, was already working on, and then suddenly got accelerated because of the pandemic. So, several teachers were using that system. Some of us were also using Google Classroom. So, it was depending, so it was more of on our end as teachers a decision between compliance or convenience. Personally, I chose convenience because it was more convenient for me, and it lessens the transactional load between me and my students. Although it has drawbacks on student and learner experiences because some students have to check their Moodle, some students have to check their Google Classroom, everything is all over the place. So it was something that was difficult for many students and teachers alike to deal with. But in terms of communication, as much as I did not want to use any difficult for students, and with the realization that the transactional difference or the transactional distance between teacher to student had to be minimized in order to build stronger and more accessible communication lines. Ako na yung nag-adjust. I ended up using Discord because all my students had Discord. And I didn't want them to invade my personal social media on Messenger. So, I had a mini Discord classroom of sorts. And
Was it just me or yeah? I think Jejo got cut off. Let me just get him back. Hello, Jejo. Are you back? Can you hear us?
hello, I can hear you now.
Yes.
Can you hear me again?
Yes. You're back.
All right, thank you very much. And that is the perfect example of why EdTech adoption in a public institution is quite difficult. So, moving forward, moving back. Classroom or Discord server of sorts just to have easy transactions and communication with students. And gaps that became visible, definitely academic monitoring was very difficult. Students were not required to turn on their cameras. Attendance was not strictly monitored during synchronous online classes. And aligning activities between different sections, between different subjects, it was very difficult talaga. Now, the challenge of teaching during the pandemic was mostly identifying and communicating what is the most essential. So, the challenge of adopting to a digital what do I want my students to learn? If there was only one thing that my students had to learn or could learn from an entire year of online classes in an engineering elective, what would it be? And for me, that was empathy grounded on genuine curiosity. My class revolves all around the design thinking process, product design, service design. Actually, right now, my students are doing some sort of campus planning in order to envision their dream assignment work that is supported by empathy with various stakeholders. It's easy to do it now because it's a full face-to-face setup. But how could it be possible for students to learn how to be empathetic, learn how to be collaborative, learn how to be innovative while they are just sitting in front of their computers in their rooms or in their homes, but they really need to learn how to deal and work with stakeholders. In hindsight, the pandemic eventually opened up many platforms in order to facilitate that without the need of physically going out, physically meeting up. It's easier to collaborate with people wherever they are. However, the human touch of collaboration, of ideation, of brainstorming, that was a major challenge for me as a teacher. How do I make that experience a lived experience despite being confined in their own homes. I admit that it was not a successful experience for me. It was very difficult to facilitate engaging communications and interactions between learners. So I attempted many things, like for example, I required students to make Jamboards or Padlets or many other edtech tools. I even had to force put them into breakout rooms in Google Meet or Zoom in order to see if they're actually working on it. And honestly, that was one of the most frustrating moments for me as a teacher during the pandemic. Outputs were highly individualized instead of collaborative. And I guess it was just something that I had to just deal with, accept, and come to terms with. But of course, as a lifelong learner, we take notes and we know the vision for when we go back to the classroom. So when eventually the pandemic died down, we can go back to full face-to-face classes. We barely did hybrid except for heat waves lately. Like we do online classes when the heat indices are really high, especially because we don't have sufficient air-conditioned classrooms. But that was when I, as a teacher, came to terms with the fact that, hey, I need to stick to my core as a teacher, but I need to be more open to technological advancements, not to replace the core of my teaching, but to enhance that. Technology was never intended for me as a replacement for my practices. I view so I found that it was already the right time for me to be more strict in terms of student communications. All official business is already through the Google Chat and Google Spaces, which is supported by the school, and which is also the direction of the school. I became more receptive to using the Google Suite and Google Classroom as for submissions. In fact, I now deal with papers, and when I actually have
He got disconnected again. We'll just wait for Jejo to go back. Yeah, this is what we basically. This is actually the one of the problems now. It's either the student has a bad bandwidth or internet connection, or even the teacher is experiencing bad internet connection. So yeah, while we want to go fully on board with digital transformation, learning like uh, fully online would be very difficult we're already if we're really in if we're actually already in a place na ano. Oh, okay, so Jejo's back. So what you're saying na this is one of the things na it's either the teacher has a
hi.
problem with internet connection or the student has the bad bandwidth or internet connection. So either way, when you're already in that hype that you're already learning, then suddenly one of you drops. It's like, man.
Yeah, it's a very challenging experience talaga. So, happens to me all the time when I was teaching online, whether it's more of it's either ako yung napuputol or the learner gets cut off because of their internet connection. And may consequences yun sa akin din as a teacher. Like they especially, well, I appreciate it kapag bibo yung student and they want to schedule a consultation to make up for what they missed out. Pero syempre, oras rin namin yun pareho. So, all right. So where was I? I think I was talking about collaboration tools. So I was already enjoying the fact that nag-advance na rin yung mga collaborative tools such as the Google Suite, which is also part of the student email accounts din naman. So what I do now is when the students have an output, I make them do their brainstorming, their writing, everything on Google Sheet, Google Docs or Google Sheets or whatever platform. And what I enjoy the most as of late was that when I have a little free time, when I announce the assignment that requires collaboration, the moment I announce the assignment, I require the class to make their blank files as groups and share the blank file to me as and give me suggesting or commenting access. So when I casually have free time, and I make sure I can do this at least once around 2 days before the deadline of the task, I go through the draft files, fill in some comments, and then wait for them to integrate it. Well, it's their choice ultimately to integrate such comments in their final submission. The benefit of that, number one, I noticed that these students take in the feedback and appreciate that kind of feedback structure, particularly because it's something we can all do and enjoy in our own comfort zones. If they want to clarify something, they just tag me there or like they reply to the comment. Some still do come to my office and actually talk to me about it, and we flesh it out further. And the second thing, which I was pleasantly surprised, and I'm very happy about, is the fact that I barely have late group submissions already. Because they know I'm watching them from a distance. I'm watching them from a distance as they do their work. And I want to provide the support that they need to further enhance their work. So by the time they submit, they're confident about it. Gifted students have this tendency to procrastinate not because they're lazy, but because they actually want perfect output. And I always tell my class at the start of the session, at the start of the school year, there's no such thing as a perfect output. Everything is a work in progress. So with that, compliance has improved significantly with good quality at that. And I feel like this would not have been possible if not for the presence of collaborative tools that we use, productivity suites that have collaborative features that we use. And I'm very happy to see that it's a bit becoming a more mainstream kind of thing for many platforms. So we also I helped out in building an attendance tracking system for our senior high school program, since our students have different advisors, different classes, but the advisor needs to track their attendance in all their 7 classes. So it's something I built with Google Sheets, and I am so thankful for the existence of import range. In real time, a subject teacher can encode their attendance, and it ultimately gets combined altogether in an aggregator, which then distributes to the class advisors Google Sheet. So that kind of tool, that kind of support, solved a 10-year long problem. So it's for me, it's a big deal. And student engagement with blended learning tools, I fortunately get less of those sir ano pong gagawin kind of questions, because I was able to actually put everything in Google Classroom or LMS or whatever system. And I can always say, you can refer to Google Classroom. The rubrics are there, everything's there. So, performance monitoring is quite easy. I have a real-time perspective because of learning management systems. I have a real-time perspective based on a certain number of turned-in requirements and submissions. I can say, okay, I think this student is not doing so well because relative standing as of the completed requirements is only this, say 60%, 65%. So I could flag it immediately to the class advisor for further intervention. Centralized communication, as I mentioned, was already through Google Chat and official email. It's already a good time to train our students to use professional channels, and it has been well adopted recently. So in the end, in terms of EduTech adoption, as I mentioned, I am not personally a fan of grand solutions for the little things. Because my core as a teacher is to teach my students how to be empathetic and drive their curiosity through empathy. With that, Being empathetic means being aware of what your needs are, what your wants are, and what the needs and wants of those you want to help or support with are. So, being empathetic helps in realizing a lot of things. For example, if we go back to that brainstorming activity that I told you about earlier when I was doing online classes, it was a major flop. But just this morning, I did brainstorming sessions with my classes. I required each design team to bring sticky notes, whiteboard markers, and other brainstorming paraphernalia. What I felt was going to be a dull session at first, wherein 2 hours was probably just gonna be dead air for most of it, was actually very productive and engaging. Nakakabuhay ng loob as a teacher. Seeing my students scrambling to build new ideas as they're writing on sticky notes, stick it on the table, sort, classify, combine ideas together to form a new idea, and eventually sketching those key ideas on the board. It's a priceless experience. And I can only wish that there were tools that can help facilitate similar experiences in a digital manner. That is going to be such a cool thing. But if you're not confident about that to happen just yet, it might not work out well, despite the presence of that technology. Because you also still have to consider many different factors like student engagement, the learning environment, connectivity, like we're experiencing right now. So there's still many factors beyond the control. But if the platforms are there, if the vision of such edtech platforms is grounded and rooted on empathy with what learners need, with what schools need, with what teachers need, edtech can support the core of being a teacher. And that is exactly what we need. To end, as I mentioned, I'm not a fan of those big grand solutions. I'm a fan of solutions that are connected to what everyone needs, to what everyone wants, to what learners, to what teachers, to what schools value to support their core as educators and learners. And I guess that's all I can share for now. Please feel free to ask me questions and let's make this a further engaging discussion. Masarap magkwentuhan tungkol sa ginagawa natin sa buhay. Thank you for listening to my sharing.
Thank you, sir.
All
Thank you
right.
very
So
much
thank you
po.
so much. Yeah. So I'm including Sir Day and Prof. Jerry here. Actually, Sir Day is also from Bisay.
Anong batch po? O9 po ako.
80.
80. Ang naabutan nyo siguro is si Ma'am Ana Chupungko, 83.
Yeah, pero hindi ko siya, I don't think I've met her. Familiar yung name.
Opo. Tapos
Yeah,
sina Ma'am Jess Yazon. I'm not sure what batch si Ma'am Jess.
pero
Anak ni
yung
Ma'am.
si Ana is, baka nakasama ko siya sa one of the alumni association meetings because I served in the board.
Opo.
Kailan ba yun? Mga 2010 ata.
Admin na po siya nun or I think she's handling special projects kasi I graduated 09. Institution na po si Ma'am Ana during that time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
even more now. Opo.
Yep.
And then we also have Prof. Jerry, our chairman of the
Hello
board
po.
in EduTech 16. And
afternoon po.
he's been teaching in UP Diliman for 4 decades. Almost. And Claret Seminary before siya nag-UP.
Opo.
So, yeah. So we have teacher, syempre I'm also teaching right now in Tayabas Western Academy. And before I taught in Batangas Eastern Colleges. Batangas Eastern Colleges is 85 years old already. while Tayabas Western Academy is 97 years old, almost 98 this January. So yes. um, and seeing that what you're doing with what you've done actually in just a span of 8 years actually in Isay Diliman is really commendable. All the changes that you've made, pangungulit sa curriculum review and changes. Um, Parang it's not really one solution fits all. Eh. So um, uh, in terms of the administrative side, how was the feedback on their end when you were doing these changes left and right, and then technology wise when you had um, when we had the pandemic, what happened to the administrative side? Was it difficult to implement these things, or yeah, we had the support of the administrative people?
In my opinion, the administration did not have any much of a choice but to support the implementation of educational technology tools because if not, walang mangyayari. So, kaya na-rush yung implementation ng Moodle while still giving us the liberty to do Google Classroom. And it was more of a reaction rather than a direction. I would have to say that. And I am not saying this because it's to bash or anything. I think it's a general or worldwide reality that educational institutions have to like adjust in a snap overnight just to be able to adapt with the needs and ensure learning continuity because the pandemic struck. Maswerte pa nga kami before the pandemic in the works na pala yung tools like Moodle. And that meron na kaming Google Suite na ongoing. So we had something to start with. I fear that many other institutions, even especially DepEd schools, did not have that at all. Ang sama ng kutob ko about that, but that's probably the reality. So, in terms of support, hindi masyadong problema kasi kinailangan rin talaga. And may naumpisahan ng ilatag. But in terms of adjustment, I guess the expectation was to adjust almost instantly as well. So, and also, I can't blame anyone because that's the reality rin naman talaga. We all need to adjust almost in an instant so that we can just ensure the learning continuity. The school year 19 to 20 is terminated almost virtually. 20 to 21 has to start later. But when it started, it had to just work. The focus was really more on the curricular aspects instead of the technological advancements or technological adaptations. But from my experience, and it was a difficult time. Even though I can be considered as one of the techier faculty members, I can only imagine those who even resigned because they couldn't bear teaching during the pandemic anymore. Mga nag-early retirement, it happens eh. But for me, there's no one to blame. I just wish there was more support from various stakeholders within the faculty, from the administration, and from graduates even of PSI who can all easily serve as subject matter experts to guide us in adjusting to this situation. And I wish the same support were also present in many other educational institutions, even the private ones. So yeah. Can I also address yung message ni Prof. Jerry dito sa chat? So,
Sure, go
Prof.
ahead.
Prof. Jerry mentioned soft skills. And pinakamalaking problema ngayon. I agree completely. Kahit mapagod ako, kaka-reiterate na kailangan ng mga students ngayon na matuto ng time management, proper professional communication skills, how to deal with other people in professional contexts, how to deal with their peers even. These are skills that were very, sabihin natin halos nag-disappear siya nung pagbalik namin sa campus after the pandemic. I would say it almost disappeared. Now it's so difficult to encourage a culture of collaboration. It's so difficult to even, at that time, it's so difficult to even hear a student say good morning when they need something from a teacher. Na, na-experience ko, even just yesterday, there was a colleague na pinuntahan ng isang student na bata pa, I have to say, diretso sa agenda. So, ang sagot namin lahat sa kanya, good morning. Tapos parang hindi niya na siya nagigets. So, professionalism, collaboration, and mutual respect for the other. I guess those are three important soft skills among many, many others. Time management, giving and receiving constructive feedback. Ang dami. They all have to be reinforced. I feel like naging major issue siya dahil sa pandemic because they were isolated in their own homes. They did not have much social interaction and opportunities to enhance their social skills. But these are critical. We really have, as educators, we really have to foster how they can do this properly. And given the advent of technological advancements and innovations, we have to be open and receptive in how to let them do the same in a digital environment. So ako talaga, for example, kapag may hindi ako nagustuhan na message sa group chat ng klase sa Google Space, sisitahin ko yan. Kasi dapat marunong sila like if they're asking for someone, if they're asking for something or if they're giving something feedback on someone, kasi I use my chat group in Google Space as a dump for the photos they did for the brainstorming, ganun. And if there's something off with how they interact with one another, you can still use the technology in order to reinforce the better values and better skills in communicating, in working with other people. So, yung pakikitungo sa ibang tao, pagiging professional, pag-manage ng sarili, pag-manage ng oras, pagsunod sa commitment ng responsibilities. Those are the soft skills na, unfortunately, from a high school teacher's perspective, they need so much work on pa nowadays. So, yun po. Thank you po.
I totally agree with that. Parang kailangan balikan yung mga estudyante na don't forget to greet people. You go to a room, knock please. Hindi yung bigla kang pumapasok ng kwarto na may kwarto. Parang super basic. But then again, there are batches kasi, di ba, na during the pandemic, you don't have to knock in an online world. So,
Yeah.
why would you even knock? So you just have to ping, message right away, and then it's already a private message. And that's it. You read the private message. So,
Oo.
yeah, we do understand nga, and I totally agree with what you've mentioned because I also have experienced those things. So, in terms of um, uh, the right now in Pisay, I'm curious whether did you slide back in to just full on face to face blackboard or whiteboard thing, or do you still use your platforms?
We slid back into face-to-face completely. But maganda ngayon kasi yung mga tools and good case practices na pulot namin from digital and online learning are used not to replace, but as I mentioned, to support our instructional practices. And pwede ko siguro itali yan dito sa message ni Prof. Jerry tungkol sa core of teaching. I would have to say I am a very proud graduate of De La Salle University's Master in Learning and Teaching program. And the entire program, hanggang kompre namin, would have to revolve around the core of your teaching philosophy. Nung kompre, siguro half the time, dun lang ako dinikdik ng panel. Hindi tungkol sa pag-resend kong portfolio. Ano ba talaga yung core mo? And dun ko talaga dinefend yung core ko na I want to be a teacher that encourages empathy, and that should fuel curiosity. So, sabi dito ni Prof. Jerry, NISMED, Programa sa Philosophy of Science, ang, sige po, I want to share that practice. And I guess pwede kong hatakin yung mga peers ko sa program ko kasi hindi kami makakagraduate sa program na yan na hindi namin kayang i-defend at ibahagi yung teaching philosophy natin. So, yun po.
Nice. As a fellow design thinker, talagang empathy is the core then of a design thinking skills eh. And for me,
Yes.
design thinking is not just, not just a steps or a cycle of how you do things, but it's actually a philosophy in itself.
Yes,
Parang it's
exactly.
right? Like, how do you look at problems and design solutions for it? That's how you think. And then when you
Yes.
embed those core things or steps, like you empathize first, you now navigate what are the problems that you really want to solve and how are you going to solve them. Brainstorm with people, look at the stakeholders, brainstorm with them, then narrow down the things that will really solve the identified problem. And tama ka rin, I totally agree with you with in terms of saying, okay, even though we have technology, these are just tools. So it's not really it cannot be the sole solution. It's just a tool that can solve and aid with our teaching methods. But the method
Yes.
itself, the system on how you present your discussion, how you provide your teaching lessons, that's still gonna be on you as a teacher, na. So I really like that one. And if you could give one piece of advice to aspiring innovators, kasi actually Reach 360 is also trying to create a, well, we have created right now an education management system, and
Yes.
we are building it and co-creating it with Batangas Eastern Colleges. So really, we're trying to navigate the gaps that they have, and then we are trying to create the features that would solve those particular problems. Mga nitty-gritties that usually developers will pass it on as wag na kasi we won't be able to use that to another particular school or something like that. So what we're doing is we're applying design thinking and looking for those
Yes.
gaps and analyzing it.
Yes.
So, but we haven't done anything in regards to learning management system. So if you have a one piece of advice to aspiring innovators in the learning management system space, what would you like to mention to them?
The learning management system, if you're going to design something, di ba,
Mm,
ang tricky ng LMS because you're really dealing with multiple kinds of stakeholders, multiple kinds of users. You're dealing with students or learners, you're dealing with faculty members, you're dealing with administrators. But beyond just those three, you also have to deal with your functional designers. You also have to deal with your dev team. You also have to deal with you as the project managers yourselves. I think what's best to do is to really have everyone all hands on deck. Not necessarily all the time na magkakasama kayo, pero there should be open communications between all stakeholders, both external for your client side and internal within your project development side. Everyone needs to have a voice. It's very imperative that of course yung user experience ng bata, yung user experience sometimes even nga yung mga magulang, 'di ba, involved sa LMS, which should be a good case practice. Yung user experience ng mga guro, yung user experience ng mga administrators. But at the same time, dapat makinig rin tayo sa gumagawa mismo. All hands on deck doesn't mean na lahat gagawa talaga. But all hands on deck means everyone has a say in the process. Kasi that's a check and balance eh. While the core of an LMS should not exactly just to simply deliver the functions, but to provide clear, streamlined, and effectively efficient user experiences. It is also important to keep everyone in check and feasible dapat lahat ng gagawin natin. Kasi mahirap na magkaroon ng mga features na sobrang ambisyoso pero kapag i-implement, hindi naman pala magagawa. It will just lead to disappointing customer and user experiences. Stick with the core. Di ba? Kasi in industry, I also did that eh. Naiinis ako naiinis ako sa client na masyadong ambisyoso or naiinis ako sa dev na masyadong or sa functional team na masyadong ambisyoso. I'm the one who always shoots down the idea if it's not feasible. You have to be practical. Kasi ilang man hours ang kailangan mo para sa feature na yan, tapos sure ka bang gagana yan? Or sure ka bang relevant yan to begin with? So,
are you going to use it?
Really,
parang kumbaga, are you going to use it in the first place?
Isa pa yan. The core should really be on UX, user experience. What do the users need? What do the users want? What do the users value? Now, if you're at the UX, if you're considering the UX, importante rin na dapat importante rin talaga na the core of the dev process is the UX. You use UX as your main consideration to keep everything in check and balance. Focus on what's essential. Focus on what will make it smooth. Because if you put in this, put in that, hindi naman pala gagamitin or nakakagambala sa process or counterproductive siya, then UX mo, pababa. Hindi magiging satisfactory. So, yun. And, I mean, to be very honest, itali ko na rin dito sa isang comment rin ni Prof. AI, globalism, social media, ang dami nang nangyayari in the digital world. As a teacher, my challenge is not to restrict the use of artificial intelligence. I am of the strong belief that artificial intelligence should be used responsibly. You use it as a seed. Kasi ang belief ko naman dyan sa AI, garbage in, garbage out. Kung hindi mo alam kung anong ipaprompt mo, wala ka rin mapapala sa makukuha mo sa kanya. You have to provide sufficient detail, you have to provide sufficient information, you have to make sure that the seed of it still comes from the human. What's the point of the artificial intelligence when it does not come from human intelligence? Diba? So, kaya, that even drives my desire even further to be empathetic. Because, yan ang nakakatakot na mawala sa mga tao ngayon. With the advent of AI, kunwari sabihin mo, what does a school need in order to have a walkable green campus? AI will spew out something like that. Pero to a certain extent, ang lalabas niyan, templated, generic answers. Pero if you say, I interviewed 3 teachers, 3 students, 3 staff, these are the key insights, process mo ng student yung insights, what would you recommend to focus on if we're designing a campus development plan? And the AI will spew out something that is probably more catered towards the needs of the people the students empathize with. Hindi ko sila pagbabawalan na mag-start ng foundation using AI. But they have to use it responsibly and intelligently. So yun lang take ko sa AI. Like, it does not hurt the core of my teaching. It enhances what I want my students to learn. They can use the core of empathy to use it intelligently.
Yes, I like that. Actually, we have also tried to incorporate it na. Parang guidelines are now being provided in the school on how do you use that. And it should be guidelines for the teachers or the faculty and the guidelines for the students. So that the students would know that they are allowed, but we use it as a tool. And prompting some things would also mean if you don't know what you're prompting, you are correct. If you don't garbage in, garbage out. If you don't know what you're prompting, you'll get something that's you don't know as well. So in the end, you won't be able to even provide anything and explain what it was actually mentioning to you. Pwedeng niloloko ka na, nagbigay lang siya ng garbage details. Don't know. So, I think important din pala, tama ka, buti ka paalala mo na if you're innovating, you have to understand first yung real problem before just giving out, okay, here's an AI, here's an AI solution. Solution agad before the real problem. Yeah. Okay.
Oo, dapat kasi malinaw eh. In fact, I presented a slide to my class a few weeks ago. I don't know how legit na si Albert Einstein ang sabi nun, but he would, if he's given an hour to solve a problem, he'd spend 55 minutes identifying and fleshing out the problem and just 5 minutes thinking of the solution. I don't know how legit kung si Einstein ba talaga nagsabi nun, nakita ko lang nung nag-Google search ako ng problem definition quotes. Yun lang. Pero it makes sense. If malinaw sa'yo yung problem, ang bilis mo makaisip ng solution with others in mind. Pero kung magulo sa'yo kung ano yung problem, ano yung issue, hindi mo rin naman talaga maa-address yung problem na tunay kasi hindi mo nga alam kung ano yung ina-address mo.
Exactly. Alright. Cool. May question po ba from Sir Dave, from Prof? I know Prof will just put down in private chat and he's been adding enough details. But Sir Dave, ikaw po.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just listening and yung kasi yung i-input ko rin lang like itong huling sinabi na yung about the problems, no? Ang sasabihin ko lang naman dyan, title ng kanta eh. No? You can't get what you want if you don't know what you want. So it's a song which was popular about 40 years ago. O panahon nila Ana Chubong ko yan. So, yun lang yun. That's good. Very, very good insights.
Thank you po.
Great. So I think this has been a really, really great discussion with you, Jejo, and the questions that Prof. Jerry also asked. This is a good way of sparking discussions regarding the use of digital tools in schools, and at the same time, what if there are available AI or tools even there? Are you going to just get it or not? Or what are the factors that, of course, Jejo had already provided in his talk. So yeah, really great discussion with you, Jejo. So I think I would like to once again, let's give a big round of applause to Mr. Jejo Bongat for joining us today and for sharing his wisdom and experiences. Thank you also to everyone who joined our TGIF session 13. Let's continue to apply what we learned today, and especially to those. I have actually shared this discussion to the Teachers Summit group. So I do hope the teachers from all different places in the Philippines, as well as different levels, high school, elementary man yan, or even college, would pick up something on what you've been doing. So yeah, so let's keep going together, and until next Friday for another TGIF session. So have a great weekend ahead, and remember, learning never stops. So thank you so much.
Yes, correct. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
It was
everyone.
such a great afternoon. Happy weekend po.
Yeah.
Yes,
Happy weekend po.
Bye. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Sir Ding.